RationalFanz podcast. That is RationalFanz with a Z. The only podcast completely unscripted and where nobody even listens to us. We just kind of rant to ourselves about sports. I'm Mason Gray, joined here by Evan Kruger,
Chris Stapps, Goat Zingus,
Rhett Koblenz,
Sup?
and Nate Haynes.
Hey, RationalFanz Nation.
You know, first off, we'd like to congratulate Kobe on an absolutely stellar career. This will be his last season in the NBA. You know, his goodbye letter to basketball, that was actually something pretty amazing. You don't ever see anybody writing that.
You know, I hope that, like, when I retire, I could do, like, you know, goodbye medicine or something like that. Like, when my dad retires, goodbye stonemasonry. Like, write a letter to stonemasonry. Like, I don't get the concept behind it. But I guess when you're Kobe, you can do what you want, and nobody can really tell you otherwise because you've been playing for 20-something years, and you scored 30,000.
Kobe's gonna
points.
Kobe.
I like the letter, though. He's saying goodbye to basketball because this will be his last year playing basketball, and he's not going to be playing it anymore.
He's not dying, though. I mean,
He's gonna be around the game for a long time. You know, I don't think he'll be a head coach because none of his players would like him just because he's a mean person. But no, I think he's got enough basketball smarts maybe to end up in a front office position somewhere. You know, we kind of saw that with Phil Jackson. He got too old to coach, so the Knicks brought him in. That hasn't really worked out, but that's beside the point. But, you know, Kobe's going to be around the game of basketball a lot longer, and his legacy is going to live on longer than that.
Oh, yeah, you know, maybe he'll do what Jordan did and, you know, own a really crappy NBA franchise. Now, we'll see about that.
I thought you were going to say play baseball.
Oh, well, that too.
You know, with Kobe making his round trip tour around all the rest of the NBA franchises, NBA ticket prices are skyrocketing in Kobe's games. Last night, 76ers-Lakers game, absolutely nobody wanted to go to it before Kobe announced his retirement. Tickets were selling for $8, and then when Kobe announced his retirement, they skyrocketed to $80 a ticket.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
That is the sad world that we live in. Oh, this guy's so great. Let's pay $80 to go watch him miss 13 three-pointers.
Okay, you know, I'm going to rant about Kobe for a second. You know, Kobe, you know, sure, he was better earlier in his career, but really, he hasn't been good since 2010 or something like that. And, you know, you still got those rambunctious Kobe fans. Oh, Kobe's the best in the league. He's better than Jordan was. Well, yeah, but he's been riding the bench because of so-called injuries the last 4 or 5 years. And, oh, guess what? He's sucking up $25 million a year, not helping the Lakers out by taking all their free agent money. And that's really why the Lakers have been so bad these last couple of years. They can't sign anyone, and no one wants to play with Kobe because he's a ball hog. Okay, that's it.
You know, I agree with you there, but there's not much they can do to not have Kobe go out there and miss 20 shots a game. And if he goes out there and misses 20 shots a game, this is actually helping the Lakers because their draft pick is top 3 protected to the 76ers, so might as well tank if that's the only draft pick you can get.
you know, I think that, you know, when you see the organization just imploding around you, I think Kobe's a smart man and he knew it was time to retire. Because when the marquee free agents that you're bringing in are Carlos Boozer and Roy Hibbert, I think it's time to rethink your life. It's time to just go home and get away from the dumpster fire because you're probably going to get burned and your career is going to be ruined. You don't want to end up like Brett Favre.
All right.
Don't be Brett Favre.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and switch subjects to a better team from California. How about the Warriors? 19-0. Steph Curry is shooting the lights out, and the Warriors look like a team that, well, could go 82-0, but no, because that's just crazy. But that's what they look like right now, Mason. They're on pace to go 82-0 when you think about it.
You know, they haven't lost yet, and that's pretty amazing. But some of the shooting numbers are just through the roof, and I don't think they can keep that production up all season to have an 82-0 season.
I mean, you look at Steph Curry. I mean, the man's scoring 32 points per game. He's shooting 52.1% on the season. That's all field goals, 3-pointers included. That is just absolutely ridiculous. And we haven't seen any reason to think, why he wouldn't be able to keep up this production all season. Until we see a chink in the armor, I mean, I'm going to keep saying day in and day out, the Warriors are probably going to win today. They are taking on my Raptors here in a few days, and the Raptors did come pretty close to beating them the first time they played them. But, all things considered, the Warriors are probably the best team in the NBA.
A better storyline from the Warriors. Luke Walton, the interim head coach, gets coach of the month, but he's 0-0 because they haven't given him any credit for those wins. Like, they haven't officially said, yeah, Luke Walton, you got those 19 wins. Why not? He coached them for half the preseason, and he's got them to 19-0. Granted, he just says, here, give the ball to Steph and let him shoot. But still, he's the guy who's in charge of this Warriors team. Why does he not have 19 wins on his record as a head coach?
I don't know why he's still 0-0 as a coach either. I was reading that a couple of days ago. It just makes no sense to me. Steve Kerr's sick and not coaching. So who's the coach getting all these wins? Steve Kerr?
They're just going to sit there and just boil for all existence on nobody's record.
They're going to give the wins to Steph Curry as a coach. He hasn't even started coaching, and he's 19-0.
I could see it.
On the opposite side, the 76ers picked up their first win last night.
Woo! Go Philly.
Against the putrid Lakers. So.
That was a great matchup, 0-18 versus 2-14.
Jahlil Okafor, they released that TMZ video of him getting into a fist fight.
TMZ just wants to get people in trouble. That's all TMZ is good for.
That's,
Ray Rice, JT Barrett, Jahlil Okafor, they're not
Johnny
good for
Manziel.
They're not good for anything.
They exist for this sole and express purpose to embarrass famous sports celebrities. But I think that it was just a ploy by Jahlil Okafor to get out of Philadelphia, because I think that he wants nothing more than for somebody to give him like a few bus tokens, and so he can get out of Philadelphia and go play for anyone at all, anyone but the Lakers. So I think he's a great young player, and it's so sad to see so many careers ruined by this awful, terrible, no good, very bad 76ers team.
He is such a good athlete. I mean, we saw this last year in the NCAA tournament. He's just such a versatile player, and he's always a threat when he gets the ball. So the Sixers, I just don't think they know how to use players in the way that they're supposed to, and they just ruin a bunch of guys who have a lot of potential. Or if they ended up on a team that at least had a half decent coach, even the Bulls, who aren't great, but they're not terrible. But Fred Hoiberg is a good coach. He could develop players like Jahlil Okafor and not ruin them like Philadelphia.
The attitude with the 76ers always seems to be, they get the first overall pick or something like that, and they make your selection, and you're like,
Nerlens Noel.
Who are they going to pick next year? Because it's going to be a failure. It's going to be terrible. You're thinking, what kind of lottery pick are they going to get next year?
Weren't they the team that picked Joel Embiid and he was hurt and he hasn't played a game for him yet because he's always been had a foot injury or something?
He's played a couple games.
Well, that's not the point. The point is that he hasn't done anything, and they wasted their first pick on Joel Embiid, who wasn't even that good.
They traded for Andrew Bynum.
Enough said.
Jahlil Okafor, a couple days after he beat up the guy in the bar, he was caught speeding 108 miles.
Yeah, across the Ben Franklin Bridge, yeah.
Across the Ben Franklin Bridge, trying to get out of Philadelphia.
Well, I think it's funny, if we go all the way back to the draft. So we have the Knicks there, sitting there, oh, what do we do? Maybe we should go get Jahlil Okafor. Oh, no, let's draft this guy, Kristaps Porzingis, that everyone thinks stinks.
Every Knicks fan says,
boo! Yeah, boo, including me, I was thinking, oh, what are the Knicks doing? Phil Jackson, you're an idiot. But, oh, wait a second, that was kind of a good pick.
Oh, look at him now.
Wow, look at Goat Zingas now. He's kind of good.
Better than Jahlil Okafor, that's for sure.
You know what I want to see is a street drag race between Sheldon Richardson and Jahlil Okafor.
Hey, might want to throw Marshawn Lynch in on that one.
Why not? Jahlil, he wasn't quite going 143 miles an hour, but he was pretty darn close.
Pretty sure he could get up there if he wanted
props to the big guy.
Let's get away from the NBA and turn to college football now.
Fair enough.
The latest college football playoff ranking just came out. You got Clemson, Bama, Oklahoma, and Iowa for your top 4. Same as last week, and the conference championships are this week. So it looks like Oklahoma's going to be a lock. They don't play a championship game. Winner of the Big Ten will be a lock.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, you got Clemson and Bama in their 2 respective title games. So if either one of them loses or both of them loses, it just kind of opens up chaos.
Yeah, it really does. Stanford and Ohio State, the 6 and 7 teams in the playoff rankings, they're kind of hanging around. They still have hope. What Stanford needs to do this weekend is they just need to get past USC, which, that could be hard for them. USC gave Notre Dame a little bit of trouble. Notre Dame ended up winning by a couple touchdowns, but still, USC put up a fight. And, Stanford can't look over them and say, well, we just need to get to the Rose Bowl or the playoffs. But they need to look at USC and, treat them like they are a top-ranked opponent, because any team in college football can end up beating anybody at any point.
I was thinking that before we came in here, because the talk is what has to happen for Stanford to get into the college football playoff, and that always involves scenarios with Clemson losing and Alabama losing. But we always overlook USC. Since they fired their head coach because he was a drunk and couldn't stay sober to come to their games, they've gone 5-2. And they just had a really impressive win over UCLA. Now they're number 20 in the rankings. Mm-hmm. And, they could be looking for maybe even a New Year's Six Bowl when they end up, if they beat Stanford. And so that's going to be a really good game to watch.
Yeah, if they win the Pac-12 championship, I think they're going to the Rose Bowl, despite the fact that they would be 9-4 at that point. I still think that they would go to the Rose Bowl because, that's traditionally been Big Ten champion versus Pac-12 champion. It wasn't last year because it was a semifinal game. But the winner of the Big Ten is going to the playoff, but the loser of the Big Ten, they're not going to the playoff, and I think that they will miss the Rose Bowl, unless by some miracle you have, Alabama and Clemson lose, and Ohio State somehow jumps in, then the loser of the Big Ten will go to the Rose Bowl. But right now, Ohio State's controlling the Rose Bowl seat from the Big Ten, and I honestly think that the winner of the Pac-12 will get in as well, because I don't think Clemson and Alabama are going to lose on Saturday.
If Bama loses to Florida, you got a little bit of a chaos. You got Stanford, and I'm trying to figure out who could jump.
Ohio State could slide in.
But if Clemson loses, you just open the door to absolute chaos.
Yeah.
Because you got North Carolina, Stanford, and Ohio State. And that brings into question, does North Carolina deserve to jump into the playoffs because they just beat the number 1 team in the nation?
I mean, if enough chaos happens, if Clemson and Alabama lose, then yeah, maybe you could make a case for North Carolina. But I think that if Clemson is the only team that loses, I don't think that North Carolina has a shot. They need at least 2 of the top 4 teams to lose, which they'll get. And one of the Big Ten teams will be out. That helps North Carolina, but also they need to beat Clemson first, and then they need to worry about Alabama losing to Florida, which I don't think will happen. So I don't think North Carolina has much of a shot.
I don't see Florida beating Alabama either. Florida's offense is just absolutely awful.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see them putting up 20-something points against that Bama defense.
Somehow they've managed to get to 10-2 even after losing Will Grier, to that suspension, and they haven't been awful. They just look terrible against Florida State. They haven't been bad the whole season. 27-2. Their offense didn't score a point in that game. That was so bad. The last time they were shut out was 1988, and that game was that close to being a shutout. In fact, I would almost call it a shutout because that safety, that wasn't even your offense. That was your defense scoring for you, trying to do your job.
Yeah, I think one thing that's always up for debate is the conference championships. You got these 2 teams, in their respective conference playing each other. One knocks out the other, but then the teams, for instance, maybe Ohio State or like Notre Dame or something that sits at home, watches these teams lose. Mm-hmm. Oh, hey, I guess we'll just sneak right into the college football playoff,
Yeah.
And I think that's a little bit unfair, to the teams that lose the conference championships. Yeah, I think the conference championships should should be a factor in the college football rankings. But I think that aspect's a little bit unfair.
What if the college football playoff went to a 5-team playoff, and it was just your champion from each conference game, like your Power 5?
That it's been brought up, but the thought is, what if, like, you have a really bad, like, say, Pac-12 champion? What if you have, like, 3-loss Oregon, and then maybe you had another 1-loss team, like, say, in Iowa that loses in the Big Ten championship? It wouldn't seem fair putting them ahead of a 3-loss Oregon team or something like that.
That's exactly why they do it. There's not a perfect way to do this. Someone's going to end up feeling cheated or whatever. Last year it was TCU. Thankfully, the TCU coach last year said, well, we didn't win our game, so I'm not going to blame anybody for that. So, there's always going to be somebody that's unhappy. There's no perfect way to do it. You can never please everybody.
Yeah, I say it a lot. The more teams you have in the playoff, the more complainers you'll have in the end. With the 2-team, you'll have 1 team complaining. With the 4-team playoff, you'll have the 5 and maybe the 6 seed complaining. With 8, you can have anybody from the top 10 that didn't get in, maybe up to a 12 complaining.
When you get to the 8s, you're starting to possibly dip into the 4-loss teams at that point, because you've got USC sitting at 4 losses at 20. Well, if they were to win against Stanford this weekend, they could probably jump up into that 12 to 8 range somewhere. And then you would have to be choosing between like 3-loss teams and 4-loss teams, and nobody wants to see that. I was originally in favor of an 8-team playoff, but looking back now at what happened last year, with all the drama that came in at the end and the 2 Big 12 co-champions getting jumped by Ohio State at the end, and Ohio State going on to win as a 4 seed, I'm in favor of the 4, because then you don't have a bunch of junky teams getting in.
Maybe a 6-team playoff, maybe 6 at the most. Give the 1 and 2 a bye.
Yeah.
But, if we just keep expanding, it's going to end up being ridiculous. Like with the NCAA basketball tournament, it's gone. They have like all
teams,
those useless first 4 games where they just pick a random, like, have an 11 seed.
We made it to the first 4 this year, guys.
Yeah, that's exciting stuff.
Maybe if if football expanded to 32 teams, Auburn would have a chance.
Yeah, they would.
Auburn this year, they've been so bad.
Let's not even talk about it.
We don't want to talk about Auburn. They're entirely irrelevant.
Mason, do you want a rant session called Auburn Sucks? We get our cold segment every week.
I probably need one.
Matt Hasselbeck, woo!
Watching the Alabama-Auburn game was so bad.
271 yards to Derrick Henry. There's your Heisman right there.
They accidentally scored, and that's the funny part. Like, they accidentally scored that 77-yard touchdown.
That was an awesome play, though.
It was pretty cool. But then that made everybody think, oh, War Eagle, what's going on? And then you forgot that their offense is putrid, and their defense can't stop Derrick Henry at all. So,
looking at the coaching positions open this season, there's so many good coaching positions, and there's so many good coaches out there that don't have a team to coach because they just got fired. So you got a lot of good coaching positions open.
Well, yeah, today, the pressure is so high for you to win in these football games, and if you have, even if you're, a big name coach, after 1 of 2 seasons of mediocrity, or even worse than that, you're probably going to lose your job. It's amazing how these coaches, they just drop like flies now. If the boosters, they'll end up buying out your contract if you stink it up, because they want to brag about their football team. Oh, hey, money, rub it in your face. But yeah, it's incredible how many coaches just don't have jobs.
Some of the coaching firings this season just don't make any sense.
Mark Richt, why would you fire him? He's one of the best coaches in college football. I don't know.
Every time that a team doesn't live up to expectations, the first one with a target on their back is always the coach. It's always like a witch hunt. Burn the coach! We're knighted for! Or something like that. And then they try to fire him. And then you realize maybe the coach wasn't the problem. maybe our team just sucks. And maybe Georgia fans, maybe your team isn't good at all. So you shouldn't have those high expectations. Rick had been coaching for 15 years. He'd gone to so many bowl games. You just fired a great coach. Who are you going to hire? Chip Kelly? I mean, who are you holding out for? I mean, seriously.
You know, it's just amazing. Mark Richt, so many 10-win seasons, made it to a couple big bowl games, SEC championship a couple of times, and then he gets fired.
It's not fair. It's not fair to Mark Richt that the standard of college football is how many wins you can get. They had, Georgia, obviously, they didn't live up to expectations, but their expectations were way too high for what they had this season. And, that's not Mark Richt's fault. He's a great coach. It's not like he said, oh, well, I don't have the talent to work with. I'm just not going to work with it. No, he tried his best. That's all you can ask for out of a coach. But in this day and age, they want you to be, they want you to be up there with the Bear Bryants of the world. And that just can't happen for everybody.
Well, yeah, I think an interesting case, along with the coaching firings and stuff is Les Miles, There were after they lost to Alabama, there were rumors for weeks. Oh, LSU, they're going to fire Les Miles. The boosters are going to buy out the $20 million left on his contract. But then their athletic director comes out, oh, Les Miles is sticking around. No, he's fine. What? Well, then where did all these rumors come from? That's what I don't understand. Les Miles is a good coach. I wouldn't say he's great because, he Alabama has had his number, every single year. But, I just don't understand that. Why would you torment a coach like that? That's rude.
Going back to what Evan said, where all the blame is put onto the coach. In college football, it's fine putting a little more blame on the coach than it would be in the NFL or a professional sports organization because they're the ones who recruit their own players. They bring in their entire team, and they're the ones in charge of them. And professional sports, you draft who you get, and you got to work with what you have. But in college, I want this guy. Well, he's going to come play for us. So if he's no good, that's my fault.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that again goes along with the pressure and stuff, I guess. So anyway, you want to talk about the NFL now, or all right?
So NFL, Carolina Panthers, only undefeated team, and now 538 is calling them the worst 11-0 team in NFL history.
Agreed.
Okay. Here's the curious case of the Carolina Panthers. So,
hey, you should write an article on our website called that.
Yes.
Get on it, Nate.
Okay, yeah, we'll see. Anyway, so yes, the Carolina Panthers, they have a pretty good defense, all right? Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis, Kawan Short, Josh Norman, they got some good players on defense. But as for their offense, well, it's kind of a one-man show. Cam Newton. Without Cam Newton, their offense would stink.
Oh, yeah.
And, I think that's why, some of those claims, about them being the worst undefeated team ever, come out. And, their schedule has been weaker. So, those complaints are going to surface.
All it takes is Cam Newton to, be out for a couple weeks or, even a season-ending injury, and the Panthers are done for. They might have a chance if – who's their backup? Derek Anderson? Is it still him? Well, if he can get Derek Anderson – if Derek Anderson can get the Panthers 10 points in a game, then, yeah, they probably would win because their defense is so good. We don't have to worry about that because Cam is still healthy, but all it takes is him to, get hurt once, and the Panthers are done for.
Might I remind you of last year when Cam Newton got into his car accident? And then Derek Anderson came in and won, 3 games.
Fluke. Who'd they play in those 3 games? Wasn't it, the Buccaneers and the Saints and, the Jets or something?
That was some bad team.
Yeah, so don't even use that as an example. I don't want to hear it.
He's no Matt Hasselbeck.
Woohoo! Speaking of the Colts, I was kind of scared when Andrew Luck went down, but I'm actually happy with the way things have turned out,
All right, so the elephant in the room is the whole talk of the Colts are better off with Matt Hasselbeck than Andrew Luck. This year they have been. I mean, obviously there's no quarterback controversy. I mean, you're not going to hand off the reins completely to a 40-year-old who's playing probably in his last season.
You're not gonna sit your number 1 overall pick either. So.
No, absolutely not. Their best chance to win is still with Andrew Luck. But Matt Hasselbeck has done an exceedingly great job. He's surprised everybody. I mean, all he's had to do is keep him afloat. He's put up some really great numbers. I mean, he threw for 315 yards. He was very efficient against the Buccaneers.
You know, he's more than kept them afloat. He's got them back above 500. He's won, what is he, 4-0 this season, I think?
4-0.
4-0. The Colts are 2-5 with Andrew Luck, 4-0 with Hasselbeck. He's the one who's got them above 500. He's done more than keep them afloat.
You know, I'm just glad that before Andrew Luck went down, he had that great game against Denver to where we can take a deep breath and say, you know, when Andrew Luck gets back, he's going to be fine. He's going to go back to being Andrew Luck, hopefully. I mean, we've said that before, and then he stunk. But, you know, I think there's still hope for the future because obviously Andrew Luck is still the best young quarterback in the NFL. But Matt Hasselbeck, you know, kudos, man. I mean, you're super old, and you're playing some of the best football you've ever played in your career. That's great.
No, I told you this, but this is like Derek Anderson from last season. You know, we just talked about it.
We don't want to talk about the Panthers.
Oh, my goodness, Mason.
Star young quarterback goes down with an injury, misses 3 or 4 games, struggling playoff team, weak division. You know, then old quarterback comes in.
Derek Anderson's not that old.
I mean, he's like 34.
That's not 40.
He's not 40, but he's still like 34. But you come in, weak division, you win your division, and then you go to the playoffs with your healthy quarterback.
Yeah, sure, Mason. That's a great analogy.
Yes.
Moving on.
Moving on.
The worst team in football right now, the Cleveland Browns. They lost in the most Browns way possible on Monday night. Quarterback gets hurt. Doesn't get Johnny Manziel on the field, thank goodness. You know, my dad's a Browns fan, and we were talking about the game last night, and he's like, well, the only good thing that came out of that game is that Johnny Manziel didn't see the field. Obviously, my dad's not a Johnny Manziel fan. Neither am I. But they go down, set up for the game-winning field goal, gets blocked, return for a touchdown, Ravens win. Browns are tanking, fail for Cardell.
Hey, well, you know what? Even though the Browns are stinking it up, you know, at least Johnny Manziel is having a good time this season, you know? At least he's partying during the bye week.
Browns are stinking it up, and he's living it up.
Probably skipping practices for more parties. You know, it's okay. It's going to be okay, Cleveland. Actually, no, it's not, because you just lost to Matt Schaub. That's really bad.
Who was the second-string quarterback behind McCown?
Austin Davis? Yep.
They
Austin
also
Davis.
re-signed Terrell Pryor, but they don't know. Nobody knows if they brought him in as a receiver or a quarterback. No one's really sure.
Quarterback, so Manziel can still stay the third.
Probably.
All right, anybody. I want you to rank the following teams in terms of the level of despair,
Is number one
hopelessness,
being the most despariest?
Just in terms
I
of
just made up that
despair,
word.
hopelessness, and
Number one
dumpster-
is the worst.
Yeah,
Okay.
dumpster fieriness. The Rams, Eagles, and the Browns.
Rams, Eagles, and Browns.
Yes.
I'm gonna go. Browns is number one. They're the worst.
Absolutely.
And then I'm gonna go with Rams and then Eagles. Because I don't.
We could also throw in the Dolphins too. They're
Sure,
pretty
we'll
good.
put them at number 2.
You know, I'd put the Rams at the bottom of that list. You know, they're like the team.
Steve Fisher is probably the worst head coach in the NFL. He makes so many terrible roster moves. He throws in Case Keenum, who's barely an NFL quarterback, and he gets a concussion. Then he leaves him in the game. He says, all right, we'll put back in Nick Foles, who we made an awful trade for, to go in and throw 3 interceptions and get your offense 7 total points. He's the worst head coach in football.
You know, Jeff Fisher and the Rams always seem to gravitate towards 8-8. They can have like one of the worst seasons possible. They'll be 8-8. One of the best seasons possible. They'll be 8-8.
Well, they're sitting at 4-7
Yeah,
right
so
now.
one more loss and looking kind of
Yeah.
iffy there.
Yeah, they're playing the Cardinals this week, so
Oh, yeah, that's
No,
hammer
they're the
time.
teams that can beat the Cardinals because they always lose to the crappy teams, and then they go out there and beat the good teams that nobody expects them to beat.
Okay, so like 5 weeks ago, the Rams, they were teetering at 500, they look kind of promising, with a good defense. But unfortunately, for some reason, Todd Gurley stopped being good. And they're like, oh, hey, let's have Nick Foles throw 50 times a game. Oh, wait, we're going to lose if we do that. Oh, well. And for some reason, Coach Fisher keeps his job after all these crappy seasons. And he still rides his Super Bowl appearance with the Titans from like 50 million years ago. Let's be honest.
Todd Gurley needs to pick it up for the sake of my fantasy team.
All right.
8-4. I need a win to clinch the number 2 seed.
You should have traded him to me
I would
earlier, but I guess that didn't happen.
I'm gonna go ahead and make this known right now. I was losing 99-73 to Mason before Sunday Night Football. C.J. Anderson, 27 points. I beat Mason by 1. Best game of the entire fantasy season.
I scored 50 this week.
Woohoo!
That was so disappointing.
All right, Mason. Enough of your ranting. I'm gonna move on here to the 8-3 Vikings. Whew. They are looking really good this season, except for Teddy Bridgewater. They have won all of their games when he's thrown less than 150 yards or something like that. He's 2,280 passing yards. That's not bad. 8 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. That's not a very good touchdown-interception ratio, but he manages to get it done when they need him to, and that defense allows Teddy Bridgewater to be mediocre. But it makes him look good because they'll give up a couple, they'll give up maybe like a point here, a point there. Teddy Bridgewater, all he's got to do is throw 1 touchdown. 8 touchdown passes through 11 games. Not real good, but still, they're 8-3 and looking like one of the best teams in football.
Yeah, the thing is, the Vikings don't ask Teddy Bridgewater to really do all that much. The offense is centralized around Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, when you've got him, yeah.
Yeah, he rushed for 158 yards against the number 1 ranked rush defense of Atlanta. Yeah, no thanks, says Adrian Peterson. Hands him a knuckle sandwich. Boom. But anyway,
the surprise pick in the NFC is definitely the Vikings.
Yeah, like I've said in the past, the Vikings, they're getting it done on offense. They're kind of like the purple people eaters of old. Even back in the 70s when they were dominant, they would win ugly games like this.
Yeah.
It'd be 2010. Crappy play from both sides on the offense. But the thing that won them the games was the defense. And they'll probably. I think the number was I think they have like a 90% chance making the playoffs now or something. I'm not gonna guarantee them anything because anything could happen. They could lose 5 in a row and still miss the playoffs. But yeah, they'll probably make the playoffs this season. I don't think they'll go very far. But this offseason, I'm rooting for them. Stack the defense again because that's the thing that. We might see it's kind of trending in the NFL right now. And, we're starting to see other teams, stack the defense. And, oh, hey, like the Broncos have done, they can rely on the good defense and win games.
The Vikings have enough pieces in place. They've got a quarterback who can control the game in Teddy Bridgewater, a running back who can just demolish any team, and a weapon in Stephon Diggs. They have the pieces there to win the NFC North this year and years to come. They got a lot of young guys who could set them up for success in the future. They just need to get a running back that they can rely on down the road when Adrian Peterson retires. Because being a running back, it takes a toll on your body, and I don't think he'll be around for that much longer, maybe 2 or 3 years. So they need a young running back who Peterson can groom. They should be looking to get Ezekiel Elliott, in all honesty, because he might drop that low in the draft. Any team that gets him is going to be lucky to have him. He can, just cut up defenses. But also coming out this year, there's a lot of good running backs. I wouldn't be surprised to see Derrick Henry go pro. So there's enough running backs coming out. The Vikings could focus on that and build a successful team for years to come.
Before the season started, the Vikings were kind of the chic, nobody's saying the Vikings, but I think the Vikings are going to make the playoffs this year. And then, everybody was saying that. And I was a little bit cynical because, my dad, he's a Vikings fan, so I'm kind of a pseudo Vikings fan. I cheer for him to win week in and week out. And teams that I cheer for to win usually lose. So I was thinking, the Vikings are probably not going to do great this year. But they've come a long way from the days of, relying on Christian Ponder for their offense and then signing Josh Freeman.
Goodness.
Josh Freeman come in, throw 53 passes in his one start, and then cut him. But, they've come a long way, and they're finally finding consistent ways to win, which is, great to see.
Well, yeah, hey, thank goodness for Mike Zimmer. But, I had to laugh a little bit when you mentioned Ezekiel Elliott. Yeah, he's a good running back, but, hey, as long as he doesn't complain about the play calling.
That's true.
Well,
the Vikings give the running back the ball enough that he wouldn't worry. It's funny, after the Michigan-Ohio State game, Ezekiel Elliott did his interview right beside Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer had his arm around Zeke Elliott the entire time. And I saw a picture, and the caption was, when dad never lets you interview by yourself again. So I was like, yeah, that's not good for his, I don't know, his draft stock or whatever, running his mouth. But
Urban Meyer he's an enabler because, he was kind of a JT Barrett apologist, when he had his whole, DUI thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was sticking up for Ezekiel Elliott after he completely trashed him. And he's like, oh, they just stuck the microphone in his face. No, they didn't. I mean, he was in a calm environment, but that's probably the only Urban Meyer blight on his record is that he's a little too lenient with his players. But, hey, they win, so it's all right. Back to the NFL.
Nobody's talked about this game, and it's probably the biggest game of the entire week. Patriots, Broncos. Brock
I was just going to bring that up, actually, so good call.
Brock Osweiler struggling. Peyton Manning. Brock Osweiler comes in, beats the 10-0 Patriots in overtime.
With help from C.J. Anderson, might I add.
Yeah, Tom Brady, poor guy. He's like, whoa, flashback to 2001, where I have 0 weapons. I mean, everyone is just gone. They've all dropped like flies. Rob Gronkowski out a few weeks with a bruised knee. Julian Edelman, broken foot, probably back for the playoffs, but still, Danny Amendola out. Who's their running back? Deion Lewis, right? Yeah, he's out for the season. The Patriots, that's like 75% of their offense. But, hey, at least they have Tom Brady, and that always gives them a shot.
Well, the thing with all those guys being out, the Patriots have kind of gotten they've gotten like a little bit of extra help from Scott Chandler, who he's kind of come on of late. He's kind of like a cross between Gronk and Danny Amendola. He's bigger than Amendola, but not as big as Gronk, so he's more of a wide receiver. But they'll line him up in the slot, So, Tom Brady, he makes everyone around him good, except his running backs. But, whatever. But he has the capability to really make any team good, with the exception of the Browns. But, the Patriots, they're not bad off just because they're 10-1.
But they can't keep hemorrhaging weapons like this and still expect to be a great team. Nobody takes criticism worse than Patriots fans. They think that every time that you criticize their team, they think that you're just going to bring up the Deflategate and they're saying, you're just salty, kiss the rings. Stuff, annoying crap like that makes you hate everybody in the Patriots organization. But,
and every single Patriots fan.
If we wanted to give an honest critique of the Patriots, I don't think their offense is explosive enough to win them every single game because they just don't have the weapons. I can't name another Patriots wide receiver. They're all nameless and faceless. And, I'm probably going to end up eating my words because Tom Brady's going to throw for like 400 yards next week. And
I'd be okay with that.
Somebody's going to catch 150 yards. Yeah. All right, never mind. They're going to win by 50.
Hey, you know what? At least they have Aaron Hernandez. Oh, wait, never mind.
Prison lot football.
Gone forever. Aaron Hernandez.
I'm going to get an Aaron Hernandez jersey. Who wants to get me an orange jumpsuit for Christmas?
Yeah, but the thing about the Patriots, and Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, they outside of their almost undefeated season, 2007, it's a lot of it has just been a lot of dink and dunk stuff, just throw it to your playmaker and let him scramble for, a 60-yard touchdown. We every once in a while we do see Brady rip it down the field to his receivers, but a lot of it's just dumping it off to Gronk and letting him hammer it out, and with the lack of playmakers right now, this has the ability to affect the Patriots like it did against the Broncos. And talking about the Broncos side, there's so much controversy right now over Peyton Manning, but quite honestly, I think I bench Peyton Manning for the rest of the season. He's proved this season that he's too old and injured to continue. But luckily, he has the yardage record now, so he can be like, oh hey, I guess I'll retire now. But yeah, Brock Osweiler, he might be the answer in Denver.
He's definitely got potential. He just looks a little, I don't know what the word is, I guess ungroomed. I don't know if that's a word or not, but
raw.
Yeah, raw. That's what I was looking for, raw. But the thing about Peyton Manning being there is if you can't get production from him on the field, use him as a mentor for Brock Osweiler. That could be the most valuable thing about Peyton Manning for the Broncos right now. And if they groom Brock Osweiler, I think he can be their answer for the long-term future.
It's amazing how much has changed since Super Bowl 48.
Yeah.
When we saw the Broncos and the greatest offense in NFL history take on the Seahawks, one of the best defenses of the last 2 decades.
Yeah.
And now the storylines are completely flipped. The Broncos are winning games by their defense, and they got some dude named Brock Osweiler playing quarterback for them. And the Seahawks have just played one of the worst games I've seen a secondary play this year.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 absolutely terrible cornerbacks and then 3 good ones. That's pretty much just like having 6 average guys out there, and that's what the Seahawks defense looks like right now, average. Their offense finally did well. I saw Bleacher Report for like the first time this year gave their offense an A on their weekly report cards, and the scripts have completely flipped, and it's just crazy to think that that's all happened in 2 years.
It really is. Yeah, a lot changes in that time, and it's just it's just the way teams change, and you got to adapt to whatever you can win with, and that's the story for the Broncos. Less offense, more defense, and it's been a winning combo for them.
If Peyton Manning comes out today and announces his retirement like Kobe Bryant did, does that really change if you start Peyton Manning or Brock Osweiler? Because Peyton Manning, he's playing his last games in the NFL, and they're more than likely a playoff team at 9-2. So I'm sure Peyton Manning can pick up a couple more wins, maybe against the Chargers, Raiders, Chiefs, and that pushes them to 11-5, 12-4. So they're going to be the 2 seed anyways. So do you start Peyton Manning over Brock Osweiler in his final games?
Well, it's in the end, it's about wins, So I in my opinion, I'd probably start Brock Osweiler just because it gives him a better chance to win. But there's also been reports of maybe Peyton Manning, he's kind of angry with the Broncos organization, for kind of throwing him under the bus. Oh, hey, you're a great quarterback. Oh, thanks for everything. All right, bench time. Thanks for nothing. Like, why? I don't know. He kind of feels a little bit disrespected right now, but he's probably not going to play after this year. He's shot. He'll probably pick up a front office job elsewhere in the NFL.
I think he would make a good coach, honestly. There's going to be so many coaching positions open soon. The terrible teams. You got the Jaguars, the Titans, the Browns. I don't know if the Browns will have an open position just because they're going for more of a lose now, win later with building like players around the quarterback.
Quarterback, though.
Exactly. All they need is a quarterback. If you look at their team, they're building.
That's it. They just need to find a great quarterback.
Here's a perfect example. It goes all the way back to Joe Thomas. They drafted him. He's been a consistent Pro Bowler with a terrible quarterback, and they've got a bunch of decent players there. That wasn't my point. Anyway, what am I doing? Anyway, Peyton Manning will make a good coach. That was my point. And there will be enough coaching positions open that he could probably find one almost as soon as leaving the league.
I think that Peyton Manning should retire and just spend the rest of his life on SNL. Because that's where he does his best work, is on Saturday Night Live. But, anyway, I kind of wanted to say that, the Peyton Manning-Brett Favre similarities are, kind of eerie almost. Because, Brett Favre, in 2009 with the Vikings, he threw 33 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, I'd like to say. They almost get to the Super Bowl, and then Peyton Manning, he has one of his best statistical seasons in 2012 in one of his last years here, or 2013, and he had 55 touchdowns. And now Brett Favre, he ended up getting hurt all the time, throwing a ton of interceptions, and that's kind of what we're seeing out of Peyton Manning too. Like that too, that last bright flash, and then the career is over, and that's exactly what we're seeing here in Denver.
There's been an obvious decrease in the strength of Manning's arm. He's just the balls that he's throwing, they just don't come off with as much velocity. We saw Brock Osweiler throw a couple lasers in that game, and, Chris Collinsworth pointed it out, and I never want to agree with Chris Collinsworth. But, Brock Osweiler didn't look bad, but, Peyton's obviously dropped in his level of play, and it's time for him to hang up the jersey, call it quits, and, spend some time with his family. He's got 2 kids. He's got a wife. Just retire right off into the sunset, Just live your life away from football.
As long as he still makes the Papa John's commercial.
Yeah, for real. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, just don't be Brett Favre. Just don't be Brett Favre, Peyton Manning.
In the NFL, the Packers, they're now 7-6. Are they 7-6?
7-5, I
7
think.
and 5.
Packers?
Yeah.
There's
7-4.
7-4.
7-4.
There we go.
There we go. They started out 6-0. 6-0, yeah. And they lose to the Lions, the Bears. They just kind of sucked lately. And the loss of Jordy Nelson has really started to show here in the last couple of weeks. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have a legitimate receiver to throw to. Randall Cobb hasn't done much. Devontae Adams hasn't done much. And none of the Packers receivers are doing anything.
Well, yeah, of course, the one team they beat is Minnesota. Minnesota just lays a turd and loses to them. But, yeah, the Packers, outside of that game, even that game, it didn't look all that great for the Packers offense. But, yeah, Aaron Rodgers has just been struggling all year long with his receivers. It looks like, they're just on the playground, chucking it around to each other. Oh, hey, you go run this route. Oh, no, I meant for you to go run the other route, blah, blah, blah. And, it's just, it's kind of turned into a circus in Green Bay, Whose fault is it, Mike McCarthy, Aaron Rodgers, Eddie Lacy ate too many McDoubles this weekend, It's a continuous revolving door of, pointing games and, the blame game. And, I think it's entertaining.
I think their season can be epitomized about, that lost snap where you could hear Aaron Rodgers yell the F word really loud. And, it's just their offense is a joke right now. I mean, none of their receivers are getting open, so Aaron Rodgers has to dance in the pocket for 10 seconds so that he can just throw it out of bounds.
Yeah.
And Eddie Lacy can't stop fumbling. James Starks is old and can't do anything. Their receivers can't create any separation. And what was really, even at the beginning of the year, a great offense is now terrible. What's happened? What has changed in the last 6 weeks? I think everybody's just figured them out. They figured out how to beat the Packers. I think the Lions were really the first one to figure out how to beat them. You just press the receivers because they can't create separation. And now everybody's caught on to that. And I think that anybody could beat the Packers now if they just figure out how to cover their wide receivers, which isn't that hard to do.
As demonstrated by the Bears beating them on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I mean, even Devontae Adams, who last year looked like a promising young receiver, he's just a liability now. He can't even run a decent route to save his life.
Let's look ahead at the games to come this weekend. I mean, there's a couple good games, but not too many good games. So, what's a big game for you this weekend?
I'm gonna go with Colts Steelers Sunday night. 2 6-5 teams sitting kind of right in that playoff area. The Steelers, I don't think, are in the playoff picture right now, but the Colts are just because they're a division leader. But the Steelers really need both. Well, I'm just gonna say both teams need a win here in this game. The Steelers need one to get closer to playoff position, and the Colts need one to distance themselves from the rest of the AFC South. I think the Colts are going to win the AFC South easily, but it never hurts to have a little bit of a cushion, and they got to win all the games they can to try and catch up with the Broncos and the Bengals and the Patriots. They're sitting at 4, but the winning percentage of the team right above the Colts is, I think, 842, and then the Colts are at 545 or something like that. So there's a big disparity between 8-2 and 6-5. Colts need to win all the games that they can in order to catch up to that point.
Nate, what is a big game for you this week?
Well, of course, I'm gonna have to go with the Seahawks-Vikings game in Minnesota.
It's a big one.
If the Vikings end up pulling it out, hey, they'll have a winning record for like the fourth time in like the last 20 years or something ridiculous. But yeah, it'll be a good test for the Vikings defense. The Seahawks, their offense looked unstoppable against Pittsburgh in Seattle. But we got to remember too that it was in Seattle, and the Seahawks stink when they're away. And
that 12th man is. That's what makes the Seahawks really. They're so good at home with that 12th man. Everywhere else, they're just
Yeah, I agree with that. But yeah, that's still a good game, and that'll affect the Seahawks' playoff chances too. If they lose that game, they also lose the tiebreaker to the Vikings. If it comes down to that in the end, which it could possibly. And so, that's a marquee matchup for this weekend.
Earlier, weren't the Vikings involved? Like in the Vikings and Packers a couple years ago, weren't they really close in a tie? Like they had a tiebreaker in the last game of the season or something. It's kind of that situation. You see games now and you're like, oh, that's a pretty good game. But then down the road, when it's playoff time, you look back and say, oh, they won that game. That was a really big turning point, or that's what that's the reason they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, I have one question. Why are the Dallas Cowboys playing the Washington Redskins on Monday night? It's like they want to take Thursday night and time travel backwards and make it Monday night or something like that. I mean, I can't think of a game I can't think of a worse game to put on Monday night, because you've got the, once again, Romo-less Cowboys with a nameless, faceless defense and a terrible running backs taking on the Kirk Cousins-led Washington 5-6 Redskins, who aren't a good team. They're just, tied with the horrible, terrible, no good, very bad Giants. And, they put them on Monday night in prime time. I just don't understand why that, happened at all.
Scheduling, they don't schedule as the season goes. They schedule in advance, and they knew that it would be a key matchup in the NFC East, which it is, but nobody wants to see it. That's how bad the East is.
Wasn't a good game before, because everybody expected the Washington Redskins to be the worst franchise in football behind, even the Browns. But, they've actually been half decent this year.
Yep.
And surprisingly, the Cowboys have been terrible. Everybody thought they would be like at least 12-4 or something like that.
It's all not having Romo.
Yeah. Well, all right. I will say one thing about the entire, if we had Romo, we would be in the playoffs kind of thing. You saw what happened against the Panthers. He threw 3 horrible interceptions.
2 of them went for 6.
You're 3-7, and it's like they forgot how badly he
He's
threw
our
the ball
savior.
against the Dolphins. And he's a 35-year-old who is prone for, tirades of turnovers, and we're going to pin our entire season on him. He's not even that good. And so I'm just glad that we can stop hearing the Cowboys can still make playoffs talk.
Yeah, they need to be looking towards a quarterback soon in the draft, because Romo, he's not going to be around forever.
Did you see where the Cowboys didn't put Tony Romo on injured reserve in the hopes of a playoff run?
Yeah, and of course, ESPN can't stop drooling over the Cowboys. Oh, and by the way, Des got it.
What? I'm going to turn to my game of the week. I'm going to stay in the NFC South with the Falcons and Buccaneers.
Oh.
Falcons.
You didn't say the Panthers.
Wow.
I thought you were.
They're playing the Saints.
That's why I thought he was going to say it, because Panthers. Just because
Saints.
Panthers.
I'm excited for that game, but that really isn't going to be much of
Panthers are going to lose. Calling it right now.
But the Falcons, Buccaneers, Falcons 6-5, Buccaneers 5-6, both very alive in the NFC playoff hunt. So many teams.
That is sad to hear.
So many bad teams right around 6-5, 5-6. There's probably 5 or 6, if not more, teams within that one-game range of the last wild card spot. This could be big for both teams.
Oh, yeah, it seems like, for the 6th spot in the NFC playoffs, all these teams, they don't want to take advantage of it. And they don't want to they don't win the games that they need to win. And, yeah, it's that last spot's going to be really entertaining to watch. It's going to come down to the wire.
They almost feel like it's a curse and want to give it to somebody else. They're like, no, you have the 6th spot. No, you. Nobody wants to take on the Vikings, I don't think.
Well, I mean, whoever ends up with the 6th seed is probably going to be a terrible team.
Probably.
Some like the Giants or Buccaneers, awful team.
here you've got Seattle sitting at the 6th seed right now at 6-5, followed by Atlanta 6-5, Tampa 5-6, New York and Chicago at 5-6. Chicago.
If the Chicago Bears are in the
Chicago.
playoff hunt, you know that something is up. You know
Chicago.
something's wrong in the NFC.
Let's end the show. Let's wrap it up real quick. We're going to do a couple quick closing thoughts. What's a closing thought for this weekend?
Going back to college football, make sure you're tuning into all those conference championships, and those are going to be some big key matchups for the playoff. Those are going to be your most important games of the weekend. So make sure you're tuning into ACC, Pac-12, Big Ten, and SEC championships. All of those still have playoff implications.
Closing thought for this week.
All right, so my closing thought for this week is about my beloved Indiana Hoosiers and their intrepid basketball program. They lost to Wake Forest, and then they lost to UNLV. And, they can score a whole lot of points except for when they actually need to. They're a hard team to figure out. They're going to go and get destroyed by Duke tonight. So, turn it on in the first half because maybe it'll still be a good game then. But, I was considering wearing my my candy stripe pants today because, they're taking on Duke. And, it's a huge game that they're going to lose. But, I decided against it because there's no hope for them to beat Duke. They're a terrible defensive team.
Closing thoughts, Nate?
Hey, well, it's fantasy football playoff time, Make sure to start your good players and don't start Peyton Manning because he is out, Tim Conley. But, yeah, and if you ended up in the toilet bowl, sorry, but you stink at fantasy football. And if you ended up with, or if you're in one of those leagues where there's a punishment for being the worst team, like we got the car wash going on.
Yeah.
Sorry, but that's your own fault because your fantasy football team stinks.
For those of you who don't know, the car wash is the punishment for the dead last team, worst team in all of fantasy football in our league. Middle of January, they sit in the back of a pickup truck and go through a car wash.
Pretty sure that's going to be Nathan.
We're thinking a swimsuit and a sweater. I think that's what we put. Yeah. We made them sign a thing where they get to at least wear a sweater, so they might not get hypothermic. That itchy wool sweater might cling to their skin and make them feel like they're being waterboarded, but it's better than going shirtless. So, good luck, Nathan.
We're going to film it too and put it on YouTube.
On our channel.
All 9 of you will really enjoy that.
If anybody's actually listening to this and you have a strange way to punish the last place loser in your league, email us those weird ways and we'll feature those on next week's show for fantasy playoffs to start.
RationalFanz@gmail.com, in case you didn't know. RationalFanz@gmail.com with your weird punishment stories.
With a Z.
With a Z, yeah.
As always, that is the end of our show. Thank you for joining us this week.